Welcome, travelers, to another episode of the Time Travel Trio podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Hyde.
And we're
The Time Travel Trio.
Welcome to our quarter quell.
Oh, surprise twist. We're getting back the old guests in the old movies. No.
That would be pretty cool. We
Peter-
just like surprised
Yeah.
people and just did like Back to the Future again or something.
I thought it was out. No. Peter Bread, did you hear about this?
Welcome to episode 75. If you couldn't tell with our Hunger Games jokes. This is a lot of episodes we've done at this point.
We've done a lot. You could...
75 years, like you're a grandma or a grandpa at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's a long time.
If you listen to an episode a day, now by the time you finish, it'd be fall.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, 75 episodes, 3 years of our life.
Yeah.
Spent thinking about time travel.
It's a lot of time.
A lot of time travel.
Yeah.
But you know, we have done a lot of thought about time travel, which is probably not what the writers of this movie did.
No.
But
We definitely have thought about time travel a lot more than this movie has thought about time travel.
I mean, like, yeah, it's not as bad as other movies you've seen.
Yes,
They're
yes.
They,
No.
they did some things that I appreciated.
I'd say it's like bottom 30.
oh, that,
I
you
put
know,
it
that's
in that group.
well,
That's not bad.
We're gonna. This is gonna be an interesting conversation because last episode
Mhm.
we did people in modern times going back to medieval times, but they were all usually roughly based off of a night in King Arthur's Connecticut
Yankee
and
and
King Arthur's court. Now we're doing a much more serious take on that
Yeah,
premise.
action movie.
Yeah, from a book though, Michael Crichton's timeline.
Mm-hmm.
That was just the movie we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's 2003's timeline featuring Paul Walker, Gerard Butler.
Professor Lupin,
Yeah.
Michael Sheen,
Yeah,
the
pretty
girl from Pushing Daisies, which took me a little bit to place her. I had to look her up. The girl who gets with Gerard Butler. That's
Yes.
the girl
Yeah,
from Pushing
oh,
Daisies.
you're
I know.
right.
Anyway.
Huh.
Please read the description.
Yeah, so a group of archaeologists become trapped in the past when they go there to retrieve a friend. Well, one of their dads, I guess, but whatever. The group must survive in 14th century France before they can escape back to the 21st century.
So, I'm just going to bring this up out the gate. Kind of feel like maybe they should have just left him there. Like, I get that he's Paul Walker's dad, but he's kind of older. He's probably 75. Like, maybe it probably would have been okay if he just, like, spent the rest of his days back there, because it is a big old mess that all
Yeah.
these people come to rescue one person.
Right,
Yeah,
it
but,
is.
you know, he said help me, and so what are they going to do? Just leave him there?
Leave him, yes.
Well,
That's his dad, though, that he doesn't live with
That he
regularly.
doesn't really... It was very
Like-
weird, their relationship.
Like, I imagine Paul Walker lived with his mom growing up because he has an American accent and not a Scottish accent like his dad does.
Right.
So he obviously didn't grow up with his dad.
Unless his dad was like, I gotta have this Scottish accent to blend in.
Well, he says that Paul Walker only visits him on his
Excavations.
thank you, like twice a year or something. And he
Yeah.
only stays for a couple of weeks. So like,
I mean, that's not bad.
That's not bad, but, like,
problems on
it's not a strong relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, he also has valuable information, and there's a lot more going on, which is why he's in time. So that's part of it. But it gets a little complicated. By the way, I'm not sure, Matt, if you mentioned this. This movie was directed by Richard Donner, who did Superman and the Lethal Weapon movies, among others.
Schuler Donner.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Michael Crichton wrote the book. Have you read this book?
I have not read this book. My dad has.
Okay.
And he actually went to go see this movie, I think, in theaters with my mom.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned, there's a lot of big names in this movie, which I guess is very 2003-ish, a movie like this. I don't think it would be made today.
Certainly not the way it was made.
Yeah.
I think if it was made today, it would have... I think it would just be... Well, one, it would probably be a super diverse cast.
Yeah.
Even though it actually would not make sense for the time they were going back in, they would probably, you'd have like a lot of different people in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very whitewashed. You're right. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
think about that.
I mean, it makes sense. This is one of the movies where it's like, well, if you're going back to like, 14th century France, I mean, yeah, there were a few people who have been like different skin tone at that time, but most people are gonna be white.
Yeah.
And so you would not want to draw attention to your group if you're trying to covertly rescue someone's dad. I mean, if I was in charge of the mission, I'd be like, well, you were sending all the white folks to this one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but even the scientists in the future or present day, I mean, they're all just still white,
That's true.
Yeah.
Like, everyone on the excavation team was white. Everyone that worked at the science facility was white. It was,
Yeah.
very whitewashed.
Couple women running around there, so a little gender diversity, but a
Little.
little.
So, what did you guys think of this movie? Hyde, what did you think?
Well, I remember seeing this a long time ago as a rental, and maybe just because it's like a rental, I knew it was like kind of a schlocky B movie. I never had like a negative opinion about it. I just remember thinking, oh yeah, that was a movie I've seen like before. Watching it now, kind of what Matt's saying, we have covered way worse. There are some cool moments in this movie, but it's also a mess. I mean, like a hot mess. Like
Yeah.
there's just things that happen that are very hard to explain, which I will definitely get into. As someone who is a history nerd, there are just some things in here that I'm like, wow. Okay. So,
Yeah, I mean, even right out the gate, the script has a lot of problems. It really throws you in. It's a little bit jarring, I'd say. I didn't feel established enough with anyone to, like, understand why we were following Paul Walker. Like, even if we had, like, maybe seen Paul Walker arrive at this dig, I think would have been a little bit better to kind of smooth us in.
Mhm.
But, like, all of a sudden he's there, and all of a sudden he's having this conversation with his father that, like, I feel like we should have known more backstory before we could kind of follow
agree.
what they were talking about. I had a hard time kind of figuring out what the hell was going on, what their relationship was.
Maybe there's like a deleted scene that got taken out.
But,
Could-
yeah,
I mean-
like within the first few minutes, yeah, you're in this full-on conversation between a father and son. And you're like, wait, I don't understand the relationship at all. I don't know their history, and they're just like talking as if we already know their history.
Right.
And I'm just like, this is like the midpoint of a first season of a TV show, the conversation, and we don't really know them at all. Yeah, I agree. That same conversation was pretty jarring that early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even, it was really, that one was more than any of the others. Like, I could follow that he liked Kate, was that her name?
Yeah, okay.
Of course it is. Kate, and, like, even his relationship with Gerard Butler, and that I could kind of, like, figure out. But it was a little weird. Did I like this movie? No. I didn't like this movie. But, I'm, like, asking myself. But, you're right. It's not the worst, but it's also has a lot of problems, but in different ways than we're used to seeing. Usually I feel like movies that we feel are pretty bad are ones that kind of garble up too much science or not enough science, or they just kind of like mess with too much stuff of the time travel a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the movies we don't like are kind of like that. They get too sciencey or something, but this movie doesn't have necessarily that problem. It just is, it's just a mess, just in general. It's too long, for sure. I think it's like probably 15 minutes too long, and it needs to be. But even the action, for me, it felt gratuitous. There was too much of it. It was nothing but sword fights most of the movie, and I got really, really bored.
Yeah, there's always some English knight finding where someone is, kidnapping people, and then they run away and they get kidnapped again. It always seemed like everyone was always, like, everyone knew where everyone else was, and they just kept finding them, and at one point I lost track of who was kidnapped and who wasn't.
Mm.
Like, I was like, wait, where's Gerard Butler and the dad? Okay, wait, no, they're in the castle. But, it's kind of hard to keep track of where everyone was, because everyone kept being kidnapped and running away and being free and then being kidnapped again. So, yeah, that was like the middle of the movie where you're just like trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, and I think the rules of, and we'll get into the rules, but the rules of the medallion or whatever they're called, the
Markers.
marker, was weird and didn't make sense, which we'll definitely get into, but that also was a big problem for me. It was like people just kept losing them, but they only needed one. It was just like I didn't really get the whole thing, because if I'll just say this now, I guess, and so I don't forget later, but if like one person has to hit it, then doesn't everyone go back? So I don't understand how when that one guy hit his,
yeah, I think
everyone goes back.
I think it's like the radius of where you are, but it only sends people back. So you had to be in a field with 40 feet around you empty.
Right,
Or
it had
else
to be
you
as
would take-
large as the other place it came from, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, I would say, yeah.
Okay. Then that's definitely not 40 feet. That's like maybe 10 feet, but of like circumference around them in that little circle platform.
Yeah, I mean, someone said 40 feet, but yeah, basically you have to be in a clearing. But yeah, I mean, as far as like the science goes, they definitely checked a lot of boxes that I was surprised that they did. Like usually with this kind of time travel, I'm like, oh, that contradicts that contradicts that. But I don't know, it was pretty consistent at least. So obviously the whole marker thing was arbitrary. So that's one of those generated points of drama that they had to throw in there. Like they need this thing to do this, but for the most part, in terms of like how they, like the science behind them, like the quote unquote science, I was like, oh, okay, they actually did something that was like a wormhole and all that stuff, and we'll get into that in more detail. But yeah, I mean the science I was pleasantly surprised with as far as a sci-fi movie goes.
So let's watch the trailer.
Let's be careful. Who's going in first?
5 young archaeologists have made a remarkable discovery.
Help me.
From the best-selling thriller by Michael Crichton.
Your father wrote that, but he wrote it 600 years ago.
What? I just want to know where my dad is.
Your father is in the 14th century. We need you to help us get him back.
A journey back in time.
DNA streams all locked in.
What about weapons?
Nothing modern goes back.
What the hell are we doing? We're getting a chance of a lifetime.
Think of it as the ultimate field trip.
Everybody take cover now!
From Paramount Pictures
There's no escape.
and director Richard Donner.
We got 650 years of knowledge on these guys. If we put our heads together, we should get out of here in 20 minutes.
A dangerous rescue. The ultimate battle for survival.
Let's go!
Paul Walker. Timeline.
Okay.
Good old movie trailer voice guy.
Yep. Oh, we miss him. The trailer was fine, I guess. It wouldn't have made me want to go see that movie.
Yeah, I mean,
but
early to mid 2000, that's what you get,
you go to see a movie like this because you like Paul Walker, I feel like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You saw Fast and the Furious, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
my dad went to go see it because he read the book, and
Okay.
he wanted to see how they, because he really likes the book, and so, he, spoiler alert, he wasn't super impressed with the movie.
Really?
But, mainly because in the book, even though most people agree that in the book the characters are a little less likable, because they're all very like scientists, and Michael Crichton is king of writing unlikable characters in the lead parts. But however, that being said, the science and the history in the book are very meticulous and very well done, and that's what makes it very exciting.
Yeah, I would think if you were, a history buff or someone like that who enjoyed that, then I could definitely see the appeal of the book and potentially the movie. But I don't, and I'm not a big history buff, but I don't think it checked those boxes enough,
Right.
I'd say. I don't know. Okay, let's just get into the time travel. So there's this machine, and we have a clip that they'll talk about it, but basically they kind of equate it to faxing.
yeah, I mean, they basically tried to find a way to teleport objects. Like, it's a 3D fax, which is a teleportation device, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to send objects to and from a place, and in doing so, they stumbled upon a wormhole that was connected to 1357. And so they developed a machine to ultimately send people back.
Like, who was the first guy who had to go on that. Test
Yeah.
that
Well,
out.
well, what is weird is that like they first sent objects back. You know, in the clip they explain it, but they sent a camera back, and then it eventually came back to where it left. But like it didn't have a marker.
Right. How did it get back? Was it
I mean, maybe
stuck in...
like maybe the wormhole like has some weird peculiarity things where like it'll send it back. I don't know. Maybe the wormhole, if you didn't move right from where the wormhole was, it'll like take you back or something like that. I don't know.
Boomeranged or something?
Yeah,
somehow.
some kind of boomerang situation.
Pulled it back, maybe. But if that was the case, then that should have been how they get back. Like, they should
They
have
had to
just
get back
been
to that
pulled
point.
back at a certain point. Yeah. And, you know, like, their lab maybe is built where, you know, that town used to be.
Right.
And now it's, instead of, like, the archaeological dig, it's, like, their lab, that point. And so
Yeah.
that point in the past is where they have to get to specifically to get back.
I mean, you would have
point.
still been able to do pretty much the same movie because you could
Yeah.
still have someone who, like, someone gets pulled back too soon and they blow up, or something happens to the machine and it gets broken and they can't send them back and they have to fix it or something to get them back. Like, all of that could have still. You pretty much had the same movie with that device.
It just would have been a little bit cleaner, I think. But it would have taken away some of the drama that they like to put every 10 minutes in this movie of like, where's your marker? Where's your marker? I don't know. Someone took it.
I lost
Whatever.
mine,
Blah,
yeah.
blah, blah. It fell off.
Wasn't my chance to.
So I'm like,
wasn't
so
my
then-
turn to look at it.
If they're so easy to lose or get taken or whatever, like, I just think there could have been something better. But, okay. Oh, so there's like I think there's 7 of them. I tried to count. I think there's 7 people originally who get sent
Right, 2 of them are security.
to the past.
Yeah, 2 of them
right?
are red shirts.
Yeah, for sure. They get sent to 1357 to go rescue Paul Walker's dad, who may or may not even be dead, by the way. They don't even know if he's still alive. So, like, what if they went and did all this and he was dead? Like, what was... Anyway.
Well, I mean, they mentioned that in the movie. Like, all they know is that he sent him to help me, and that was it. And it's been 72 hours. So
Yeah, I wish there would have been maybe more of a reason why the people who invented the machine, they had a name, ITS or something like that.
ITC, I think.
ITC, why they needed his dad to come back versus just needing someone to come back, because they left other people in the past and didn't really seem to care that much about human life in general.
Right.
It's kind of the vibe
Well, I mean,
got.
and it's also revealed that one of the heads of ITC actually is a villain.
Right.
Who wants to keep them there.
Right. So that's why I didn't understand it. And maybe there was a reason, I just didn't catch it, but I didn't understand why they needed, you know, older Paul Walker dad. I wish I knew his name. I don't.
Billy Connolly's character.
Yeah. Why they needed him to return as well. Maybe he had some information, or maybe he went there for a purpose to get information about something that they needed.
I mean, they definitely chose him to go back there, but Paul Walker had to call them to, like, say, hey, where's my dad? And they're like, oh, okay, we'll come over here, we'll help you, whatever. So I guess
it was weird.
They viewed them as, like, expendable, so they agreed to send them back. But yeah, it was kind of like Paul Walker had to call in order for them to accept them to go back. So
Right. It didn't. I think that also was kind of goes with the sloppiness. It didn't make sense to me that Paul Walker's team had to find ITC to figure out where his dad is. Like, how did they even know? Because then they talk about how his dad was kind of on the down low talking to ITC, but how did they all get in touch with each other? It just, there was a few things that needed to kind of be ironed out a little bit better, and it wasn't. For things to kind of make more sense about why people are going through these actions and going to certain places. So they go back and immediately are ambushed, as is, I feel like,
Typical
usually
in
the
this
case with this kind of story.
well, this movie especially, wherever you go, you're going to get ambushed, you're going to get kidnapped.
Right.
They're like, we're ready for you, we're waiting for you, we're just like, we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, of course, they kill the 2 security advisors on there, and one of which, and actually a pretty cool scene, he realizes that he's about to get killed, so he tries to send himself back to the present. He gets shot with an arrow. The first 2 arrow shots to him are non-lethal, as long as he gets medical attention. So he sends himself back to the present. However, as he's doing this, an arrow is shot towards him, that kind of goes through the wormhole as well and travels. So he appears in the present, but following right behind him is an arrow, which gets him right in the heart. He was priming a grenade, which, why would you prime a grenade if you're trying to go into the present?
I guess he thought he'd have enough time to throw it.
Yeah, maybe he didn't have enough time to throw it.
Or to leave it.
Yeah, like help the group out, I guess. Like, I'll take a few down before I can go back. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
And then what happens is he goes to the present, he dies, and then he lets go of the grenade, which was primed, which blows up the time machine.
So that I actually really liked about this movie. That was one of the things, and maybe it's in the book, I don't know, but I really liked that immediately all of a sudden there was this big problem that needed to be solved. And in the present day, exactly, that the people in the past didn't even know what was going on. I really liked that stake of it. I thought that was a really good thing to do, and I appreciated that it wasn't like at the end of the movie when they're about to try and get back.
Right. It's a problem that consistently happens. They don't even know that. I mean, hey, their markers are getting taken and all that jazz, but they don't even know that the markers won't work right now.
Right. And they eventually
they do try it
a few times and it doesn't work, and then, eventually it does, obviously, because it's a movie. So while they're in the past, they find his dad, and then everything kind of unfolds in the timeline.
What's funny is, like, in the trailer, he's like, we have 650 years of knowledge to use against them, but they don't really use any future knowledge. The only knowledge from the future they use is his dad telling them about Greek fire.
Or the fact that they know that the French are going to attack that night.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's it. That's all they don't use they don't makeshift any future technology. They don't, like, makeshift a gun or whatever. They just, like, have knowledge of when things are going to happen, but it's like, it's tonight, but, like, yeah, they're being attacked constantly, so, no one, like, even Claire is just like, yeah, they're attacking us. She's like, you're either a prophet or a fool, but, like, she's not surprised. She's like, yeah, probably.
And I have to bring this up because it's a huge plot hole with Billy Connolly, or the professor, Paul Walker's dad, essentially, the professor. He tells them to make Greek fire, which he uses as a modern, like, technique. Greek fire, used by the Byzantine Empire primarily. No one knows how to make it. Now, the movie depicts it accurately based on historical accounts that it was a very dangerous weapon that was consistent fire that water would actually spread. Basically like an oil fire or something of that nature. And at the time, it was considered one of the true versions of a weapon of mass destruction. Because one massive, like, explosion of Greek fire could burn down an entire city, eventually.
Okay.
But no one knows how to make it. It's been lost to history, how to make Greek fire. Even the video game, Rise of the Tomb Raider, which has ancient villains using Greek fire, acknowledges that modern people don't know how to make Greek fire. So, like, how did Timeline... I just don't understand how this professor, who is not even a chemist, is able to figure out... He's an archaeologist. He's not a historian. He's not a chemist. He somehow knows how to make Greek fire. It's such a weird thing for him to be able to do. Also, future tech-wise, the French in this movie are under-equipped for what they would have had at that time. In the 14th century, most French soldiers used crossbows, not longbows.
They'd have crossbows.
Yeah, some of them did, but they don't. They would be using primarily crossbows, which is kind of interesting that they don't really make a big deal about that. I mean, it's kind of what you guys were saying. Like, they don't really do need the future tech. I'm like, imagine they improved one of the soldiers' crossbows or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like for a movie that talks about history so much, it doesn't really seem to care too much about history. It kind of feels like. Yeah,
it's just, I mean, I get the Greek fire thing, and I even understand it, but together, we haven't even gotten to my favorite historical hell moment, which is when Michael Sheen tells his soldiers to use night arrows. Now, night arrows are just regular arrows, it turns out, but they're harder to see at night. And he acts like this is some great strategy instead of firing.
He's all smug.
Yeah, he's all smug. Like, I just discovered something new. You mean firing arrows at night? Also, I hate to burst the bubble of people who love seeing fire arrows in movies and video games, but most fire arrows, particularly ones traveling at that distance, would extinguish themselves before landing.
Yeah.
Catapulted flames would probably make it there if you had enough oil and tar for it to be lit. but not arrows. Almost no civilization use fire arrows in warfare. Not to that extent, certainly. Not to the point that they would start using regular arrows and calling them night arrows.
Yeah, fire arrows are like the default arrows in this movie. And even on the poster, there's fire arrows. It's like half fire arrows.
Yeah, it's weird. This movie feels
They do
like
look cool.
but it feels like the Time Machine to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's trying too hard to be that movie, which is also about whatever. But
Yeah, it's like a period piece action movie first.
Right. I just don't like it. So let's get into the rules, but I want to play the clip of them kind of explaining their machine that they built.
Yeah.
So we sent out a camera over and over again, and we got back photos of the same location, a hillside with trees. And that's when Mr. Doniger made the brilliant decision to point the camera straight up. So once we cross-referenced star charts to the horizon, we realized that the camera was not only in the wrong place, but it was in the wrong time.
So what does that mean?
It means the camera was taking photographs of a wilderness near Castlegar, France in the year 1357.
So wait, what you're saying is that you accidentally discovered time travel?
No, Mr. Stern, we accidentally discovered a wormhole. A wormhole that seems to be locked to a single time and place in the past. 1357, Castlegar.
So what does that mean? You faxed my father's glasses and documents back to the 14th century?
No, Chris. Your father is in the 14th century.
What?
We need you all to help get him back.
Mr. Robert Doniger.
This doesn't make any sense. A wormhole is one of the most volatile forces of the universe. You can't possibly send a person through one.
Yeah, and you can't fit a piece of paper through a telephone wire.
But you can send a fax.
Oh, yeah, sure, once you've broken the message into a stream of electrons, but... Oh, shit.
I mean, this is something that I actually did like about the movie.
Right.
Yeah, I did appreciate that they, they took the effort to make it clear that this is a wormhole. This is what happened.
They found it accidentally, and it's tied to one point in the past, and they just happen to like go in and out of it. But like most movies, wormholes, you see a hole open up and you walk through it, like in The Sound of Thunder, which is ridiculous.
Classic example.
But in this, they turn them into electrons and they shoot them through a wormhole. Which, if a wormhole is small enough, which it would have to be unless it would suck in everything else, then yeah, they can just like shoot them through it. Obviously, how would they come solid on the other end without some other device to receive it? But the idea of it is like, okay, the wormhole, and they send them into a stream of electrons, and there you go. It's sent to a certain point in time, and they just kind of use it.
I also realized during that clip, and I remembered when I was watching the movie, and that just reminded me of why I also felt so confused in the movie, is that they never tell us that his dad is missing. It's just all of a sudden he's been gone for 2 days, and they never establish what happened to him. Did he disappear? Where did he go?
Well, I think one of the lines in the conversation with Paul Walker was he was like gonna go do something.
Right, but like we need to see him leave. I cannot stress that enough. That like him saying I'm gonna go do this thing eventually. Like that to me could be tomorrow. It could be 6 months from now. I don't know. I don't know this guy. This is the first time I'm seeing him. Like show me a scene of Paul Walker. Like even at the end of that conversation of him leaving would be enough. Like put a bag in his hand and walk him down the steps. That's all we need to understand that he's been gone for 2 days. And then maybe Paul Walker tries to reach him and can't. And then it kind of snowballs into all this stuff and he's trying to figure out where he went.
Yeah, it is, because you don't realize the stakes until much later.
After they have already like been established for the characters.
Right.
And it doesn't, we are then trying to catch up and it's not, anyway.
Yeah. It did seem like he went from that night talking to him, and then suddenly they find his handwriting in like a document 600 years ago.
Right, and that feels like the next morning to me,
Yeah.
but then he's been gone for 2 days, and that's why I didn't understand the disconnect of that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, they talk about, in that clip, they talk about a guy named Decker. We need to talk about Decker. So, Decker is a guy who had been sent previously with ITC, and gotta tell ya,
Time travel made that guy a real asshole.
he really did, because he got stuck in 1357, and he just wanted to get back home, I guess. But he didn't want.
I had a family too.
But he didn't want anyone else to get back home too.
Right.
So he just kept taking their markers.
Well, yeah, if you wanted to get home, just take a marker and then go to a field and there you go.
Right.
But he decided to keep taking markers and stay in the past, essentially, for as long as he wanted to until he died, you know?
Yeah, because it didn't make sense. He wanted to get back home, but he couldn't. He even said so himself. He said that because of how many times he's traveled back and forth, that his body couldn't take it and he couldn't go back.
Right.
So instead, he just wants to be cruel and keep other people there? Like, dude.
It's really crazy. I mean, like, he literally just stabs a dude, like, while he's, like, already, like, tied up.
Yeah, Neil
McDonough's
character.
Neil McDonough.
Yeah, which, by the way,
also
Neil McDonough's character,
Time travel made that guy a real asshole.
he's also an asshole. He's very selfish in different ways, though. He kind of... He
isn't a villain, but he's,
he's like borderline, though.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go on this mission in the first place, and so, like, once he's there, you can kind of tell he's like, alright, let's just do this, get it over with, whatever, I want to go back home. And then it obviously drags out a lot more than that. But there's a couple times that he tries to just go back on his own and leave them.
Right.
But he's not able to, obviously, because the machine is down. He doesn't know that from the grenade. So...
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think Neil McDonough has maybe played a good guy 4 times in his entire career.
Yeah.
If that.
Tin Man being, at least...
But even in
Tin Man.
Yeah, but even in Tin Man, he's kind of... Yes, he is a good guy for the sake of our heroes in Tin Man, but, like, in that world, he's not necessarily a good guy.
Yeah,
like, Tin Men are not good guys in that
that's
world.
true, yeah.
They're like rogue cops.
You're right. It's like
who
you got
kill
Angels in the
people.
Outfield. You've got
that's one.
You got Angels in the Outfield. You got Captain America, Captain America, the first Avenger. He's the bowler hat guy.
Oh yeah.
And that might be it.
Is that it? Yeah, because Minority Report definitely not.
Yeah.
Which there's a guy named Decker in that movie too, by the way.
Even in The Guardian, he's pretty
He's
in the middle.
Yeah.
Decker is like the typical movie name for a dude. It's just like, get Decker on the line.
Yeah, you're right. That's such a cliche. Yeah, I don't see... Was he a good guy in 88 Minutes?
No.
I don't know.
No.
I haven't seen any of his
He's not.
IMDb.
He's one of those guys that you just kind of see him around a lot. I feel like I've seen him in a lot of things. But
Yeah.
Anyway, he's great though. I do like watching him.
That's why he always gets work. Everyone's like, yeah, hey, it's Neil McDonough.
Yeah, he's a great look to him. All right, so that's kind of how they end up in the past. The rules of this, we kind of talked about the markers. So they use these markers and it sends, I guess, a signal back to the present.
It seems like it triggers the machine itself.
Okay.
Like, because they're not waiting for a marker. They just like see the machine turning on, and it's like, someone hit the
so
marker.
So it's connected.
Yeah.
It is connected to the machine because they can see how long they have left until the wormhole closes. And so they kind of, they might have explained this, but remind me. They say like once they open the wormhole, it's only open for a certain period of time and then it closes again. So that's what
I think
6 hours
the
is?
marker has like a 6-hour charge that connects it to the wormhole. I think it's the marker that has the time limit. So, if someone were to come back later, like obviously like with his dad, with a fresh marker, he could then use it to get back home. But I think their connection, they say, to the wormhole is unstable. They don't understand it fully. So, like after they have to rebuild the machine, they're not sure if it'll still be the same wormhole or if it's still connected because like they don't quite know how it all works. But yeah, basically the wormhole is like a natural event that they're trying to use, but like they don't fully understand it yet. So,
right,
gotcha,
right, and there's some. Well, I'll get to that in consequences, but yeah, it does seem like it's more like, look, man, we're gonna just drop you down this hole. And you're supposed to come out okay on the other side, and then we'll figure out how the hole works later.
well, it's not the hole; it's the rope that they use to get through the hole. To extend that metaphor, it's them turning them into a stream of electrons that is messing with their internal organs and like all their bones and all that stuff because they don't know how to make it 100% efficient. So when you use that method a whole bunch of times, like being turned into a stream of electrons, you're not always built back 100% the same way.
Which is what we see in the beginning of the movie of the guy in the desert.
Yeah.
Who like dies in front of the guy's car.
Right.
So because they show his X-rays, like everything is a little bit off. His veins don't connect. Like it's very weird.
Right.
But also, how does that guy end up in the desert?
Well, they mentioned that too. Like, we don't know why he was there because
Okay.
they don't understand it all. So, which
That feels like a cop out a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we don't understand
Definitely.
it, so we're not going to explain some of this stuff. It's just going to happen.
It was just that was spooky, right?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Isn't it weird?
Spooky. Yeah, I mean, there are other things with time that they use. The timeline is consistent. They don't actually change anything. Their story that they tell was wrong in the future. Just because obviously stories change over 600
Right.
years. But yeah, everything that they saw in the future or in the present day before they went back to the past was kind of already done. So like the mural being destroyed or whatever,
So
the glasses and the note and the sarcophagus with Gerard Butler in it.
So they always went in this story. They always went to 1357.
Yeah.
All those people in that way. So the people who died in 1357 were always killed by, like when Kate killed that guy, she
Right.
always killed that guy. When poor French guy died, he always died
Yeah,
there.
Francois.
Exactly. So
Yeah. I mean there's nothing to imply otherwise.
So that then brings me back to the Greek fire. That always happened, and they just don't know how to do it without the professor? Is that the thing?
Well, he doesn't tell them the full secret of the recipe, as far as I know. Even though they
He just
warn
makes
him.
it for them.
Yeah, even though they
Okay.
warn him, like you're telling him something, but he clearly doesn't do anything that lasts more than one battle. So I guess on the off chance they killed someone who maybe had a very important lineage that didn't die in that battle originally, it's pretty much how it's supposed to happen.
Okay. So since that always happened, there aren't repercussions of Gerard Butler being taken from the present and sent to the past? Like
I
I'm
don't
thinking
think
like
so.
this.
Because
like
they found him
like
already.
Star Trek 4.
Yeah, they found him already with
Yeah.
Gerard Butler there. So
Okay.
clearly the world was never too crazy because of Gerard Butler going back.
Is that technically duplication? Because
Um,
Gerard Butler found
His own
himself,
corpse.
Yeah,
his own-
kind of, yeah.
His own rotted
Sarcophagus.
corpse in the sarcophagus.
It just took, it was a very long loop, but eventually, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Finally closed itself.
All right.
600 years.
So there aren't any holes there? There's nothing...
Well, there was a small thing, but I think it's just like a set thing. When they destroyed the mural, in the present day, it wasn't totally destroyed.
Well, okay,
but
here-
in the past, it was like a whole
My
window was
theory
cut
of that,
out.
though, is that because that was in the past, doesn't necessarily mean they're just going to leave it.
That's true.
I
Yeah,
figured
maybe
they probably
tried to
just
reconstruct it.
blocked it back up.
Mm.
Maybe the French or whoever it was that like went through the
Okay.
tunnel maybe wanted it to be blocked back up.
Yeah,
up
that's
so
true.
people didn't use it.
Yeah, I buy it, and maybe it's still kind of in cracked. So like over time, it just the pieces kind of fell down. You know,
Right.
Yeah, I buy that.
I can buy that too. Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like the stuff we see in the past, then being in the future, like Kate, when she sees the mural or whatever, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna break it." She like had the moment where she was like, "It was who would break this? It was me," and then she breaks it.
I'm the asshole, yeah.
Yeah.
I liked
it was,
that.
It was a pretty good moment.
I like those kind of moments in time travel where someone kind of makes the revelation of like, oh my gosh, wait, no, I'm the reason why this happened.
It's me.
Yeah, and same with Gerard Butler when he got his ear cut off. Instead of being like, "No, my ear," he's like, "Wait, my ear, it's
My
me,"
ear!
and then that's what makes
Yeah.
him win. Because he's like, "I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be with Claire and be happy."
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's him. That was his motivation, just getting his ear cut off, which is pretty good.
He gets to live another wonderful 30 more some odd years of her.
Yeah.
So the guy always threw a grenade at the machine too.
Yeah, I guess so.
If we extend that, then everything that happened always happened.
Right.
Which
Okay.
is pretty clean.
Yeah, it's pretty clean.
Yeah, I did appreciate that. I was looking for those kind of flaws, but I was
Mhm.
like, okay, they kind of addressed. They didn't go too crazy. They didn't really, throw a whole bunch of dice and try to risk it. But they were like, okay, let's put in some things here and there, and then pay that off eventually.
Yeah, I did think it was smart how they were able to do that by utilizing like history itself, because you're right. The history we know isn't necessarily how everything happened. Like take
Right.
Lady Claire, for example. They always just, figured, okay, she
Yeah,
died
story
and
of
that's
she
what
died.
motivated the French to win the war. But in reality, that's not what happened. I mean, even before they go back, we learn later that it's her, but she's the other person in the sarcophagus.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
because of that, she obviously didn't die at that point.
Mm-hmm. It's just like one of those legends that gets
Yeah,
found out.
whoever carried
Right.
the tale. Yeah, I did. I did like Kate though. I think as far as like the token girl in the movie goes, she actually did stuff. Like she went full Assassin's Creed and
that's true.
And she went over the building and stabbed the guy and got them all out there, and and she used her knowledge to get to the tunnel. Obviously, it was still blocked off, but like she actually did stuff. It wasn't like she was just there to be a damsel in distress. She actually like
she was an active participant in the story.
Yeah.
Though apparently, even though some people in the movie felt like she wasn't totally wasted. In the book, she is way more badass.
Really?
And like kind of as one person described it in a video, it's like in the book, Kate is much more of the de facto leader of the group.
Okay.
Even though technically it's the Paul Walker character's mission, she's the one who seems the most capable in the book.
Well, yeah, and I can see that too, just by the strands of her character in this movie, because she is the apprentice of Billy Connolly's character, so she is like the next in line to be the archaeological expert.
Right.
But in this, she's more like, she's more the female of the group who has knowledge, as opposed to the one that knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I can definitely see that it was like a shadow of that.
You definitely see that they kept it, obviously, because it was a movie, and you don't get to really be with characters. They thought, father-son bond is a stronger one to focus on.
Sure.
So, that's probably, I mean, it makes sense. At least she wasn't reduced to how we've seen. For some reason, time travel can usually be very cruel to women. I don't know what that is about, but she has survived. That is one thing that we can definitely say with this movie that's positive, that the women in this movie are not just tokens and trophies.
That's true, yeah. I'll give it that. So, consequences of this time travel.
You do it enough, you get split in half or whatever.
Pretty rough.
Your body gets... It does not look like fun when they time travel. It does not look like something you want to do again.
No, and you don't get to choose where you want to go. It always goes to 1357.
Right, because it's just that wormhole connection.
But it's not the same day, so does...
Yeah, I think time passes the same amount of time.
Progress the same... Okay.
Yeah, because his dad was there for 72 hours, and it was 72 hours for them, too.
Okay.
And it's also 6 hours here and there, so...
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, it is notable to mention the boss guy, Lupin from Harry Potter.
Right.
He ends up being stuck in the machine when they go back into the present, and he gets sent back to the past, and he gets chopped down.
So he's trying to prevent them from coming back, which also, why? I don't know. He just is.
It feels like a last minute, we have to have one more villain.
Right. Why does he care whether or not they come back?
He had some scene with the other guy, the guy that explained the stuff in the clip, and I don't remember what they're arguing about. Like, my technology, the people are, important, but I don't know. It was some weird motivation.
It was like corporate greed, something like that.
Yeah, it was weird. He was like, "Shouldn't we just try?" And he was like, "No, absolutely not. We can't. Whatever. Blah blah blah." It didn't make sense.
This is something where it would have really made sense of why they need to bring Billy Connolly back, but maybe. Yep. Billy Connolly has some sort of dirt on him, he knows, I know
that he left Decker there on purpose.
Right,
that would have been enough.
That would have been cool. And then it's I'm gonna have you get rid of you somehow or something.
Maybe it's the second time that Billy Connolly's character went back, and the first time he discovered Decker, and when he came back, he confronted Lupin about it and was like, "Hey, dude, you can't just leave your people in the past for." For history's sake, you're fucking with the timeline, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We need to go get him back. I know where he is. He goes on a mission with people. Lupin tells them, no, leave Professor there, come back, whatever. I don't care about him. I don't care about Decker. And then,
that would have worked.
He knows that Paul Walker's crew isn't going to rest until they figure out where Professor is.
It's a lot cleaner to just send him.
He just dumps people he doesn't want in the past.
No murder, no body.
Yep.
That would have been a good motivation, I think. And then just make him the bigger villain. I don't know. It does seem like there was stuff that was missing.
Yeah. One thing that's important to note also, in the book, they straight up say that time traveling technically kills you. So when they split up your electrons, you die.
And they do actually say that in this movie. The science guy who stays behind, physicist, I don't know his name. I think he was
Josh or something.
He was in Sweet Home Alabama or some movies like that. But I swear to God, he looked really familiar. But he says at one point, he's or maybe Kate they say like, so technically you're dead for a second while you're
right.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean that is the whole ethical thing with teleportation. Is that like you get killed and then recreated on the other end. So like, is that really you on the other end of the teleportation?
Right.
That's always
or
kind
just
of
a perfect copy.
Yeah, and that like in Star Trek, obviously that's not ever a thing. But like in modern day, people are like, but that would mean that you're being killed and then remade at the other end. So that's kind of like the ethical.
It's kind of like
thing.
I always something like this. I always picture it as you know the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka movie.
Yes.
When they show the scene of they show it better. I mean it's in both, but in that scene you kind of see Mike TV kind of get dissolved into little molecules, and then he's like inserted
in the air.
into the TV, so he's technically teleported over there.
Right? Yeah, the same mechanism.
That sort of. That's what I always picture. Anyway.
Yeah.
I was gonna say though. So Lupin, you kind of said this too, but when Lupin's trying to like destroy something on the machine so it doesn't work and they can't get back, he is in there while they're coming back to the present day, and so he's then sent back to the past, which I really liked that too, by the way. I liked that it wasn't just one-sided, that like whatever's in there, it's getting sent back.
Yeah, the wormhole's like open, so wherever's on either end gets sent to the other end.
Yeah, flip-flopped. So I thought that was cool, and then he dies. So.
Pretty much instantly.
Yeah, I think it would have been more powerful though if Decker had been the one to kill him, but Gerard Butler killed Decker.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't know. I mean, I don't have a ton of other notes. I liked Martin Sheen. Which Sheen was it?
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen. Yeah, I like Martin Sheen.
Very different Sheens.
I know. Yeah,
Okay, Wesley Snipes
forget.
from 30 Rock.
Yeah, I mean,
Wesley's.
yeah, I mean, I know them apart, but like, yeah, the first name is where I get thrown off. Yeah, Michael Sheen.
Michael Sheen. Yeah. Martin Sheen is the president.
Yes,
that's right. Martin Sheen is the president. Michael Sheen is the werewolf.
Yes,
Lycan.
Yes. Yeah, that's always how I remember him too. Werewolf.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about the science. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to mention?
No, we kind of covered that. I appreciated the wormhole.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they stumbled across it, and you use the stream of particles to use it.
Yeah. Okay, the time travel is pretty relevant to the story. It's, it is... Someone gets sent to one time, spends most of the movie there, and then gets sent back to their time. But it is a little bit more integrated into part of the story.
Right, and it's also used as a ticking clock.
It is, which is good.
And I also like that, like you said earlier, Jen, I like that they break the machine in the present day. So, like, otherwise, why would you flash back to the present day to have them just talk? So, like, when you go back to the present day, it's like they're working on something else. So, I appreciated that, too.
Yeah, I agree. So, closing sets, it feels like like a movie version of medieval times.
Yes, particularly the clothes. The sets are okay, but the clothes do feel very... I mean, it kind of makes sense for their characters.
Right.
It would be kind of neat if they had like very like clean looking medieval stuff, and then they see everyone else and like everything's like dirty and tattered, and like not colorful, and they're like, "Whoa, where'd you get the nice clothes?"
Right. That would have been better. I also think like why wouldn't they be sent back at least with like maybe some water or things like that?
Yeah.
Like I get nothing modern can come back with them, but like they could do
something.
A water thermos or something.
Right, like I have
some basic tools.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that like a bottle of Arrowhead spring water is going to somehow destroy the earth. I mean, this is not Sound of Thunder. All of a sudden it's like, oh!
Yeah, Sound of Thunder it would, but yeah, this movie not really.
In this movie it'd be like, yeah, you're fine. Like, otherwise, if it was Sound of Thunder's physics, they'd be like, well, now we're going to have several time waves, and soon you're going to be a crocodile baboon.
Fish person.
Crocodile baboon.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, they could have had like a joke. If this movie was more fun, they could have had like a third item they found in the tunnel, like glasses, parchment, and then like a water bottle or some weird future thing like this thing has been here for hundreds of years. How it would have been a joke, but they could have done something like that.
Right, Game Boy Advance.
Like,
what's this?
It could have
her
been something.
iPod. Maybe she left her iPod, or she accident, or something like that.
She was like, I need to listen to some sick Assassin's Creed soundtrack. And I'm hopping over all this stuff, doing some of my parkour.
That would be pretty funny. Okay, so we kind of talked about this, but would you guys want to experience this time travel?
No.
It kills you.
Definitely not. Not even once. I don't really have an interest to see this particular time period.
Yeah,
I mean,
agreed.
Sure, but not with these consequences.
And definitely not during the 100 Years' War.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, just terrible time.
Yeah,
Hard pass.
especially for you, Hyde. You don't want to be dropping
Yeah.
in the middle of
I don't want to be dropped in the
France.
middle.
No,
It'd be
yeah.
Black Knight 2.
Yeah.
Probably be better though.
I'll definitely be more respectful to the women around me. I'm not going to ask one of the chambermaids if she owns a thong.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh.
Plus, I mean, I would probably be caught in a sarcophagus with holding hands with someone like, oh man, what's up? Who's that guy?
You would basically be Whoopi Goldberg in that Camelot if you go back in time.
I would be
That's true.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah.
With the dreadlocks and all.
Yeah.
It would be amazing.
Bring your rock music.
Yeah, bring my rock music.
Yeah, build some irrigation, build some toilets.
Right. I'm like, yo, you guys want to live like this. We don't need to make this 100 years war. Once this was just an 80 years war.
Yeah.
Let's just stop this.
You sit them down, you talk it through them.
Yeah, like, come on, guys. Think
talk
about the
out loud.
innovation. I'm going to show you how to make Greek fire. I learned it from Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other notes you guys wanted to mention? I think that was all of my stuff.
No, I think that's it for me.
Cool. So, final reviews. Matt, why don't you start?
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the movie, yeah, I do agree that it was a mess. I wasn't bored to tears, but I also wasn't thrilled out of my seat at the action. You know, the cast was good. They acted fine, you know. I think it was a good casted group, a good group of people, but, you know, I don't know. The movie itself wasn't high quality, I would say. For the time, maybe it was. I don't know. It was a long time ago now, 15 years ago.
Wow.
But I didn't hate it. I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay. Hi.
Yeah, kind of echoing what Matt's saying. You know, it's not horrible. I mean, Richard Donner is a director with a lot of talent, and that shows up in some moments here. It just has a really bad script. This script was so bad, this movie ended up so bad that Michael Crichton made a contract that no one could adapt any more of his stories until he died.
Wow.
That's how painful
I didn't
it
You
realize
can't live
that.
with that anymore. Wow.
Yeah, like that. It was basically like Dr. Seuss's like widow with like the Cat in the Hat, like as equivalent for Michael Crichton. Like, and this is a dude
That's probably a pretty fair equivalent, actually.
yeah, like Michael Crichton is a dude who literally wrote a new book just so Steven Spielberg could direct it into a movie. So I mean, that must have been really soul shattering for him to watch this. So that being said, though, I still agree that it's finely acted. There's some decent set pieces. It's not trying to be too much that we see a lot of time travel movies try to do. They try to do way too much with the concept. So with all that, I'm going to say like a 3 out of 10.
That makes me nervous that, like, if my writing ever gets made into a movie, that makes me nervous.
All right.
That's why you get that EP role.
Yeah, you
I
get that
definitely
producer
would.
credit.
Yeah. Script 2.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That J.K. Rowling
Yeah.
sitch.
Yeah, this movie definitely has some story problems for sure. Especially in the beginning. I definitely think, as I mentioned at the top, there could have been a few parts tweaked. The relationship with the father could have been better established. Kind of to use this word, the timeline of him leaving, the professor leaving, to kind of help us to understand a little bit better of what's currently going on and where our characters are at before they actually get there would be nice. It was convoluted. It really was. There was a few too many characters, I think, honestly, and just too much going on. Too many just nonstop battles. Like 25 minutes left, I got bored and was like on my phone because I just was tired of watching just battle after battle after battle after battle of someone trying to escape from something, and then, as Matt said, then they get captured again, and then they escape, and then they're captured again, and there's a fight, and blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing over and over and over again for 2 hours, and it gets really boring. And I like action movies, so, you know. That being said, 3 out of 10.
Yeah, for time travel, I did appreciate the wormhole they stumbled across, and they were sending the stream of electrons, and I like that they peppered in the stuff that they found in the present day, and they see it in the past. I have an issue with the marker and how it all works by sending them back, kind of similar to how what was it, Time Cop? They would just pluck them from the past,
right?
So and also how does the electron stream re-materialize as a person on the other end without any apparatus to receive it? So that's an issue too. But essentially, I was pleasantly surprised by what they had in there. And maybe that's because that's what was in the book. Like Hyde said, it was meticulously researched, I guess. So I don't know if the book also had the wormhole with the stream of electrons. If so, Cheers to you, Michael Crichton. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little. I agree with you, Matt. I'm gonna be pretty much around where you are, maybe a little bit more generous, just because it doesn't break its rules, which is always a big thing for me. It does not break its own rules. The rules stay the same and they stay consistent, and they manage to give us a twist with the rules without breaking the rules, which is very hard to do when the Remus or whatever his name is, Lupin, is sent. I was in Lupin the Third. When Lupin is sent back
He's
in
Remus Lupin, though. So
Remus
that's
Lupin.
good.
Okay, that's why. When he gets sent back, chucked back to the past, it follows the rules of the time travel. The camera thing kind of breaks the rules, or at least bends them. Though I do kudos for them using the stars to figure out what time it is. That was a really cool method. So I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'll give it a 5 too. I was I was around 5, but yeah, I agree.
I'm persuasive.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of those movies that the time travel is better than the movie itself, and that doesn't happen very often. And I'm kind of on the same page too. My time travel rating is going to be higher than my movie rating because I think it's the cleaner part of this movie, and the movie itself, aside from the time travel, is the messier bits. So I agree. There aren't really plot holes in the time traveling itself. It is very clean, and even though we were sitting here trying to poke holes, there really aren't any. So all that being said, I liked the explosion at the beginning. I liked Lupin being sent back in place of them returning. There were definitely parts of it that I enjoyed. So. And I am realizing, yes, that guy is in Sweet Home Alabama. Don't even worry about it. He's her gay friend. Okay.
What
sorry.
a versatile actor.
I was like, I know there's something there. Okay. So, time travel, I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 10.
Nice. Okay.
So, Rotten Tomatoes for Timeline is 11%, with a decent amount of reviews. 142 reviews, so that's a pretty good average. The critics' consensus says this incoherently plotted addition to the time travel genre looks and sounds cheesy. It is cheesy, yeah.
I mean, 11% fresh, but 3.8 out of 10 is the average rating, which I think
that's pretty close to where we were.
Yeah, it's not a garbage movie, but if you're gonna go yay or nay on if it's fresh, then definitely I can see that people going that route.
For sure. And the audience score was 45%, so I think that probably has something to do with Gerard Butler and Paul Walker.
Right.
Which is fine.
Likable cast.
Yeah, decent cast, and a lot of early 2000s hair, like men's longer-ish hair, but it's not a man bun yet.
Especially Josh, the techie guy. He has the frosted
oh my
tips
God.
and
there was shots of the back of his head, and his hair was 5 different colors. And it was so ugly. I hated it. That was ever a trend. If you're looking for a time travel action movie, we could suggest so many better ones than this. All right, our next episode is my choice.
Nice.
And I've chosen the 1979 movie, Time After Time, which is directed by Nicholas Meyer and stars Malcolm McDowell and Mary Steenburgen, who we love her.
Yes.
And Malcolm McDowell, he's okay too. Talk about Sound. Is he in Sound of Thunder? No, that's the other guy.
Ben Kingsley.
Thank you. I always mix them up. So, Time After Time's description says, H.G. Wells pursues Jack the Ripper to the 20th century when the serial murderer uses the future writer's time machine to escape his time period.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it sounds interesting to me. I know people have mentioned this movie to us, so I'm excited to see it. I hope it's a good movie that we've never heard of, not a bad movie because we've never heard of it. So
we haven't done a lot of movies from the 70s either.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So that'll be cool. That'll be our next episode. Okay, social media. We are at Time Travel Trio on Twitter and Instagram if you'd like to follow us. We are the Time Travel Trio podcast on Facebook. We are streaming on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. If you rate, subscribe, or follow us on which of those you choose, we would appreciate it. If you write us a written review on iTunes, we'll make up a fake time travel story about you. And personal, I am at Jem Marlis on Twitter and Instagram if you'd like to follow me.
And I am at Foreman in Space.
I'm at Robinson is Hyde.
And
with that,
we are out of
time.